I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing that content is king. We get it. Hey guys, welcome back to this week's video. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're still talking about the Altimeter Group's report, the 2021 State of Digital Content. Now, if you missed last week's video, then I would suggest watching that first because we're going through this report and we're talking about the data points, some of the ones that I found interesting, and then I'm going to provide some context and some best practices on how you might overcome some challenges that the report highlights. So thanks again for tuning in and let's jump into it. And this is the last video of this content series around the 2021 State of Digital Content by Altimeter. And this is probably just as important as like the first video around using audience data. It asks a couple questions that are very similar to what we discussed in that video. Content creators use both online and offline data to personalize content. So let's talk about these data points. If you see here, what sources of data do you use to create personalized and customized content? And let's talk through these. 63% use website analytics, and Google does a really great job at providing some interest and affinities of users who go to a website based on previous sites that they visited in the past. Social media metrics, so looking at the audiences based on some type of content performance from paid media. Looking at primary research, so surveys, customer service, call center records. We've counseled companies before where if you can document the top concerns people are calling into your call center for, and then creating a series of content, that to me it is gold, because now all of a sudden you are decreasing calls to the call center and using data to do that. So also CRM systems, and then lastly data purchased from third-party databases. Now I don't know if platforms like Audience or Affinio or others, if they classify that as data purchased from third-party databases. Probably it does, and I'm surprised that it's only 23%, right? To me, that is one of the most important pieces of data, because if you think about like customer surveys, right, you're asking very pointed questions to an audience. It's almost like a focus group, right? People know that they're being watched, so they are answering questions in a way that they wouldn't if they were just being observed and didn't know it. So it's important, don't get me wrong, because it tells you a lot of the what. Like when you want to drill down and understand why an audience acts a certain way, or why they prefer one brand over the other, or one media publication over the other, you can ask them why and kind of get more detailed information. But I would say, going back to this concept of being at the zoo, right? If I'm at the zoo and I'm watching a lion, they are acting in a very different way than if I were actually on a safari somewhere in Africa. They would be acting much differently, right? So when you think about audience data and observing different audiences within the habitat where they feel comfortable, like Reddit forums, like if you're a developer, GitHub or Stack Overflow, or just your social media conversations on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, right? Those are platforms that people feel comfortable in. They're being themselves. So if you can pull data from that to understand and personalize and customize content, to me, that is, it's easier and less expensive than everything else you have here, right? So, again, Audience, Affinio, there are several others that I will link to up here in the description area that you can look at and use to begin to mine those conversations and create content that is a lot more relevant to what they care about, and also in alignment to your brand. And then the last point I want to talk about is more about kind of the quality of content. Now, an agile system means that you have to create content quickly, right? You're listening to an audience, or you're using some type of data to inform the content creation. If you want to be relevant to an audience, you have to create content quickly, right? That's the whole concept of what an agile content system is. I've mentioned this before. It's agile storytelling. It's being able to, that content supply chain from, that idea of creating a piece of content to the point of it's being published. Sometimes in large scale organizations, and back in the day it was 6, 8, 10 week process, and by the time that content is produced, it's not relevant anymore. And so the idea of agile content system is being able to produce content in real time, in the right channel, to the right audience, at the right time, or some variation of that. And so sometimes I don't want to say you have to sacrifice quality, but you have to remember that you have to remember that especially if you're in a B2B audience, right? B2B buyers, developers, engineers, IT, CIOs, they don't love branded content, right? The logo at the bottom with the fonts and the colors and the look, feel, that works maybe for lead gen in some cases, but you have to create content I don't want to say it's unbranded. What I want to say is it's less branded, right? That is how you deliver value to your audiences. And so, again, you're not necessarily sacrificing quality, because you do have your visual guidelines and your visual presentation and things like that. That's always going to be important. But you have to remember that sometimes it's not going to be as polished as it would if you spent 6 weeks on a video than you did for 2 hours. So I just want to highlight that agile storytelling is about producing value. And if it doesn't necessarily look exactly like your website, that's okay. That is 100% completely okay. In fact, it probably performs better. And I say that with based on experience. And so looking here at, again, just some interesting data points around guidelines around, consistency of content and high quality content is important. So building, what we call these playbooks around content creation are important. It highlights the voice and the tone and the different content pillars. That's always going to be kind of a fluid, document, one that, decentralized or centralized content and brand teams can use. But again, you have to be able to do it quickly. And that's what being relevant is all about. It's being agile. It's telling stories quickly and in a way that drives value. And that, my friends, concludes our time together. I hope this series around Altimeter Group's report, the 2021 State of Digital Content, I hope it was helpful. I hope you didn't hear things that everybody else says. I try not to recycle other people's thoughts and ideas. I want to provide you with actionable thoughts and takeaways and ideas that you can begin to implement. So until I see you next time, I hope you're well. I hope you stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.